Welcome to this Vital Health podcast. I'm Duane Schulthess, the Managing Director of Vital Transformation. Today I'm extremely pleased to have a one-on-one discussion with Luca Pani, the Director General of the Italian Medicines Agency, AIFA. Luca is a visionary, as we all know, and as a regulator he is overseeing the implementation of game-changing real-world data monitoring systems in Italy, and these are successfully being used to provide evidence for the reimbursement of medicines based on their actual real-life performance. Alongside of his work in Italy, Professor Pani holds a guest position at the University of Miami and is one of the unquestioned global thought leaders of how data can be used to improve the way we improve outcomes of patients. Luca, thank you for your time. It's a pleasure to see you.
Thank you, Duane. Thank you. Nothing you said is true, but it's okay.
So we're here to discuss your new book, Sustainable Innovation. The book is an overview of how the Italian Medicines Agency and you are trying to use data and innovation to fulfill your mandate, as well as many other issues and discussions that we'll get into today. What was your motivation for writing the book? Why did you do it now?
This book represents a lot of the ideas and documents that we have put online on our website. So the decision to put together this was, believe it or not, this will come to almost like a joke. One day I was trying to relocate something I wrote in the website, of which I was sure I wrote it. And it was very difficult for me using the
to find it,
the search engine of the IFA website to find it. So I said, that's the beauty and the doom of the web, of Facebook, of everything like this. That you one day is there and then it's gone. And although I'm intrinsically against paper, save the planet and all that stuff, I said, what if we put some of the topics that are really hot and a little bit. This is less than 10% of what we have published, and we put it together under. You saw the books, right? Some chapters that are hot topics in our field, and we did the Italian version, and it went like bzz. And then the minister, which wrote a beautiful preface to it, said, "You know what? I think you should do it in English, and it's there, downloadable." In a way you can print it both in English and Italian, and it's open source, and so that's the decision.
And we'll be providing a link to the book as part of the release of the podcast so people can come in, download it, and it's brilliant. On your comment about data, we're participating with EMIF, the EMIF project of IMI, and Andrew Rodham from GSK gave a presentation about the Salford study. When you talk about the amount of information that's being created since we're off paper. So between COPD and asthma, they've got 6,000 patients enrolled in the pragmatic trial, and they've collected something like 25 million lines of data.
Oh yeah, let me tell you something about this recent IBM Watson presentation put together. If you take a human being, the entire data that is related to all human life of that human being that you can put on a clinical chart, blood test, anything as medical intervention, sums up to 0.4 terabyte of data. Okay, it's 400 gigabyte. If you take the sensoristic around that individual, so the thing that he does or she does in real life, by an iPhone, an iWatch, you name them, whatever you have. I mean, I have no preference on that. The amount of data is 1,150 terabyte. Now, you tell me what you want to choose, where you get your data. Of course, let's not get all drunk about this data stuff. Then, as a regulator, we must stress on the quality of the data, the validity, the usability, certification, some stuff. But these are the numbers. Okay.
So it's fascinating to me that everyone's talking about big data, and you actually have a large section on big data in your book. And this is a key point. It's not how much data you have, it's how you use it, basically. It's how functional it is.
Correct.
One of the things that I find fascinating about the AIFA is that you are both an HTA and a payer. So you do the evaluation.
We are regulators, HTA and payers.
Do you think having that 360-degree view, similar to what a Kaiser Permanente would in the U.S. or a Blue Cross Blue Shield, does that give you a leg up? Do you think that gives you an advantage in Europe?
Well, I have to confess my conflict of interest on this, but I will absolutely say yes. We have two committees. One is the Committee for Scientific and Technical Evaluation, which does risk and benefit, and the one is the price and reimbursement, which actually tomorrow we are in session. The minister, she is about to fuse the two committees in one, calling it the Committee for Scientific and Economical Evaluation. I find this absolutely fantastic. It means and that we will be in session for at least 2 weeks in a month, from Monday to Friday, continuously. So you might come up in Italy with your dossier, and on a given Monday being evaluated for whatever reason, scientific and economical, and have an HTA, and 2 Mondays later, so 15 days later,
you get the ruling.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
That's I think, and she's been really working on this. I mean, I've seen level of legislation that she's engaging on, so she might be doing it fantastically.
And this is something that you've been driving, I know.
Yeah, I've been suggesting, this is my role. I'm a technical man. I'm a civil servant. So if my political counterpart and my regulatory fellows ask me where I see things going, I said this is my personal opinion. Like the things I say now, as you know, there is a disclosure on the fact that I'm saying this under my personal opinion, so not on behalf of IFA or EMA. But if you ask me where I feel our field is going, then this is my suggestion, and I've been followed. Yes, I have to say some of the things are happening.
It's funny because Italy has a reputation of being very bureaucratic, very top down, but yet you've been given a tremendous amount of freedom and ability. I mean, I'm sure you fought for it.
Yeah, it is absolutely. I'm never content, and the people around me sometimes, and even very close people that are helping, because it's not only of course the job of one man. We've been gifted by increasing our workforce by another 1/3.
Isn't that also a reflection of the fact that you're creating value? I mean, you're actually driving value for the Italian economy.
Yeah, we have discovered that the passion of the Made in Italy for like the leather goods and the Ferrari and the Gucci and all the Bulgaris, all the things, is also in making medicines.
Right.
And so our inspectors are tough, but our companies, the actually industrial force that makes the drugs in this country is very high in quality and in innovation and in certification. This paid off. It made value. Yes, you're right.
Bloomberg wrote a very nice article about your evidentiary requirements, how you're looking at performance-based outcomes and performance-based reimbursement. They pointed out that you'd actually had $200 million come back for a lack of performance, which was 1% of the total budget.
Correct.
I mean, these are incredible statistics, and so far it appears that it's universally regarded as a best-in-breed, best-case scenario. It is the thought-leading program internationally. Yeah. What evolution has occurred in the program since that Bloomberg article in January? How are things evolved?
Yeah, the management entry agreement had 3 classical pivotal points, right? The cost sharing, the risk sharing, and the payment by result. We understood immediately that the payment by result would be the real one on investing, providing that the data, so again, an informatics type of revolution. We needed to have registries that were absolutely ISO 95,000, those type of certification that with the company and with the doctors, you don't have to argue on the quality of the data. So we invested on that. And we pointed out on payment by result. So the first thing that happened is that we pointed out on payment by result. The other thing that happened is that the results have been remarkable for these new drugs. So, I mean, we're talking about the eradication and response of hepatitis C. We have now on the registries in a little bit more than 1 year and a half, 52,000 people on which I can tell you granularly how much they have responded and where. And we do know that they are responding at about 95%, so above 90%, as the clinical trial had supposed. But this is not a clinical trial. This is real life data.
These are outcomes data. These
on 52,000. That means we can subclusterize effects on the real payment by results by specific clusters of Hep C, but you name also for immuno-oncological products.
Sure.
We will have the same. So we agree with the company and we say, okay, so that's what it is. This is the price volumes, discounts, whatever. But if it doesn't work, and we all agree that it doesn't work, you pay back. So where are we going? We are going on the fact that, thank God, the results are better and better. It might not be convenient anymore for us to do only payment by results. So we need to come up with some other creative vision on a combination between payment by results, some cost sharing, and perhaps a capping, saying, okay, but if we arrive to 1 billion euro, okay, that means we have to revise a little bit the total amount of expenditure we can bear, for a therapeutic area. Because at the end of the day, there is a limitation in the total amount of resources.
I'd like to drill into that a bit, because in your book, you spend a lot of time discussing Sovosivir, the new hepatitis C drugs.
Yeah.
And you point this out that, hey, look, if we're getting up to 1 billion, 2 billion in expenditure, this doesn't work.
This is my personal vision.
Sure.
Not even Gilead expected that Sofosbuvir would have such a success.
Yeah.
And that's what probably... So they made their own, logical and legit calculation, say, okay, then others will come and we have some competition, so our amount of revenues might go a little lower. But the impression we have that this drug, highly priced, really was very much liked by the doctors and by the patient. The response was very good, and in fact is still around, being the backbone of other treatment. Having said that, the drug per se, in avoiding liver transplant, if you
Sure.
make this type of calculation,
Which we have.
yes, might not be so expensive. But I have to tell you something. If you, after 1 year and a half, calculate the liver transplant being avoided in Italy, you still don't see that now.
It's a 10-year risk.
Yeah. So if you just come from an economical type of evaluation, I'm thinking about Case Permanente, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they say, okay, I have invested Hep C eradication, but I have saved in liver transplant. Well, not now.
Exactly. It's a return on investment calculation.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, the big problem we have in Europe. The fact is you and the AIFA are paying for this drug to eradicate essentially Hep C in a class of people.
Yeah.
But then the people down the value chain who are making these liver transplants, theoretically, that money should be kicked back up to you guys.
Now, the issue is, you're right, and the issue is even much more intense than this. It comes and it dwells into the concept of moving out from the silos of medicine. Okay, you go back to the real data analysis. Then real data is real data. So you would see that the total amount of transplant or the total amount of time spent, think about asthma, think about immunotherapy for cancer, think about new antibiotics, the total amount of days that are saved in an hospital, therefore in another silo, okay? Or the subtracted from work, therefore from productive activity.
Exactly.
Another silo, not at all related to medicine, by the way, it's pure economical power, can be then fueled back to the original chain of the pharma value. Then you go back to the payment by results story and you say, okay, if you deliver this, well, I will pay for the outcome. So I will pay for the therapeutic area for the outcome. I'm not paying for the pills anymore and for the injection. I'm paying for you to deliver a certain value that I can convert to money and I can measure. And again, the magic word is certified. Okay.
Yeah, and this gets into this again touches on the big data section of your book, where you're talking about the able to link this open data infrastructure to be able to do this. And I completely agree with you. We're going to need to have this transparency across all of these existing silos. And ironically, even though Europe has fantastic data, generally because of national health systems, we collect all the data, the fact is they are siloed, and a lot of the real barriers are being erected by the practitioners, particularly the research practitioners who don't want to give up their data. How do we fight that? That's a political problem. That's not a technical problem. How do we deal with that?
It is. In Italy, it was kind of easier because we have a national health system paying for everything. So we have a leverage which is very strong. It says, okay, if you don't provide me with the registries and you give me all the data that then I analyze,
we're going to
you
hit your
simply
wallet.
you don't get the medicine, okay?
Exactly.
And I don't reimburse the medicine. No, you get the medicine, but you pay for the medicine. So that was a good leverage. What I would suggest is the fact to really involve the vast majority of the data that you are talking about are completely destructurized. So they are not really in a very neat Excel spreadsheet that you will love to do some Oracle type of thing, and everything is very easy, and have your little SQL and get all the responses. These are messy data. like is the real life data. But once they have a certain streamline and a certain certification, you can get out a lot of information for this. But you're right, it's a political choice. It's not technical. Technically, it can be done. But for instance, do you give me the access to that data politically? Do you write a law which allows me to give an IBM Watson, a Google, a Facebook, whatever, a big data analyzer, which is a private company, usually, the ability to analyze these data, which are public, they are mined, they have also value for the single individual, the single patient. This is a very important issue.
Because we had a situation where we needed to find a very rare condition, and we needed to search it very quickly, and did a back of the envelope calculation and said this indication with this drug, we're going to need about 15, 20 million names. I made a phone call to a couple of our clients in the U.S., and I was able to get that data in about 12 hours. It cost me a beer and a dinner. There's nowhere in Europe I could go to get that level of granular data today, right now.
Correct.
Not in 24 hours.
No, you're absolutely right. And this, actually, with the tragic situation that we are witnessing in these days in Europe, really goes back to what Europe is. You know, if Europe is only a word, then, which is very nice in terms of the peace, love, and understanding, but does not deliver an homogeneity of visions and data and protection of data and common policies. They meet all together in a commission, they meet, and then everybody goes back to their own country state and they do whatever they want. Then you will never get that type of data you are asking. We really need a common repository, you know. Perhaps a coalition of the willing in the beginning.
Sure.
You know, the states and the countries that want to put this into a repository might do it, and then the others might join.
You're not the first person who's recommended centralizing European decision-making for healthcare. Given the political climate now with Brexit and some of the polling data in France, certainly the Five-Star Movement is now your new mayor here in Rome. Is it politically feasible to try and actually unite this? I mean, if you put the control of national health care at the EU level, wouldn't that basically putting a red flag in front of the bull potentially right now?
It is, but you have to have the courage of your ideas. I absolutely don't think that you will have any future in a globalized world dealing with multinational global pharma companies, for one thing, and then negotiating at the level of states or even counties, because somebody wants to do a county type of negotiation. First of all, what will happen? You will give to your opponent, quote unquote, a power of negotiating that you don't have. You will have somebody who is making decision for the world, and you are making decision for an hospital. Okay, so you don't have all the information that he has on the other side. Second, you will not have buying power, for one thing. If you have to buy 1 kilogram of apple or 1 tons of apple, what is the better deal that you can?
Yeah, if we're talking a kilo, but I think we're talking 100 million kilos versus a billion kilos potentially across Europe. So I mean, the scale is slightly different.
Yeah, at least if you can do, and that's what the disaster of Brexit, for instance, for the HTA, NICE has been a driving force for the UNETA and as being very rigorous, very scientific. We have splendid collaboration with them, and also for EMA. And everybody's discussing about the
where's the new home?
Where's the new home? But the real discussion is on what do we do of the 25% of the total amount of dossier that are handled by the very competent MHRA colleagues, and what's going to happen with the ability they have in pharmacovigilance. I mean, this is in scientific advices. I mean, this is what we really ought to discuss.
And if you look at, certainly you touch on regenerative medicine in your book and some of the new therapies coming down the pipe. And if you look at how NICE has been so innovative and so forward-looking in how they're analyzing, particularly in embryonic stem cells, where the UK has had a decade's lead over the rest of the world.
The only other advanced agency I see is PMDA, of course, in Japan. When we wrote the divergent position on Glybera, we did not really write that position for the product per se. It was not, but for the example, exactly what you are saying, on the fact that by playing with the old rules, the classical regulator rules, we could have been in the position that if other genetic therapy and regenerative medicine will come with a fast pace and with the amount of evidence, there is, I would not say that there is less, there is different from the one we are used to have for a statin or an antihypertensive drug, the classical type of inclusion criteria and endpoints and things. Play by those rules, we might be in a very awkward position in not be able ever to innovate, because we have an innovation as well, a role. And in the meanwhile, what's happening? The CRISPR technology are coming, right?
CRISPR.
The DNA editing, and not even the DNA, the RNA editing. So you need the regulators, and that's the first rule. They are really in the trenches, but also looking far away what is happening scientifically.
But in your book, you're quite critical of the PMDA for the rapid acceleration that they're putting into the regenerative pipeline.
My personal friendship with the PMDA and with this leader, Kondo-san, is such that I would not criticize them. But what I said, I confirm this. The acceleration attitude versus regenerative medicine without a role for the regulators of doing perhaps pilot, like the spirit of the prime, the priority medicine, that thing.
Or perhaps an adaptive pathway.
Yeah, something like this.
Because I think what we're probably going to see with regenerative medicine, certainly with Glybera we do in the gene therapies, is a certain percentage have very, very high effect impact.
There is
a certain
correct.
percentage. And we know that they're going to be very effective. And certainly in immuno-oncology we see 20, 25% almost curative for 2 years. Complete remission.
We have the long survival, and that's
Yes.
another issue for HTA, for instance.
But one and two in some of the immuno-oncologies, adverse events.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to deal with these things.
You see, you go back to the payment by result concept,
Yes.
right? But you need also to be aware that for those in which you don't actually deliver, it's payment by results to get the money back. But for those which you deliver, you might have a premium price.
Sure.
Okay. So that is the concept where I was going. A mixed type of new management entry agreements in which you share part of the risk, at least culturally and scientifically, and then you agree on the way the sustainability of the system is fueled. Because otherwise, if you don't get return on these investments, they might not invest again in this type of technology.
And this is what you've seen with Glybera. I mean, although it's effective, it's been prescribed once at a cost of 1 million euros.
Yeah. I would not, let's put it this way, I would not approach it only on the amount of money per se. This is not really the matter. There is no such a thing as a too high price. Yeah, it can be in general, but it depends on what the price delivers. Because I might say, okay, is 1 million, but I pay in 20 years.
Exactly.
Okay? So I pay 50,000, and the moment it stops working, I stop paying.
Fine.
So I might have paid 3 years, which is 150. You might still think this is a lot of money because you are paying 150,000. But how many pancreatitis I have avoided?
Exactly. This gets back to our comments on Sovaldi and the Hep C drugs. It's not the cost you're paying; it's what cost you're avoiding that are so important. As long as you can count them.
Costs.
As long as you can count them.
Yes.
No, I completely agree. Now, the managed entry agreement part. That's again, to me, that's kind of the secret sauce of what you folks have been doing here so successfully in Italy. How have the companies been responding to those?
Oh, actually, that's a very interesting question. Even the most innovative companies are very conservative when it comes to pharmacoeconomical model. And we find this another fascinating problem in our field. So you have companies that come here with immune therapy, with nanotechnology, with sensor technology, amazing stuff scientifically. And then when you start negotiating the price, the model is the same as the antihypertensive.
It's always been.
And we say, well, guys, you need to come up with something a little bit more creative on this. So they are responding well now. They have seen that out of these registries, they can get very important information. And I give you an example because otherwise this is all theoretical. If you take Lucentis registries that we have for the macular degeneration, we have over 150,000 patients there. We can give you really by the push of a button, and another 12 hours and no cost, and not even the beer and the dinner in this case, nothing, we can give you the subcluster of individuals above 65, 75, and even 85, because there are some folks
There's
in
enough
Italy
there,
that yeah. And these numbers, okay, are more than the total amount of numbers in that age range that were used in the original clinical registration trial. And now you know the milligram.
And on top of it, it would be cost prohibitive to incorporate that number of people into the clinical trial.
Impossible.
It would be impossible.
Impossible.
And so you're working with the pharma companies like, okay, you come with us, and then we'll give you important data too. So there's a bit of a two-way street in the managed entry agreement.
We own the data, but the data are shared. They can use the data. They have only to relate with us if, don't publish the data only on efficacy, please. Try to also to show if there are safety issues, so this type of things.
One final question here. What do you see coming down the pipe as far as next generation therapies? What do you see that's particularly interesting to you?
RNA editing, sensors, technology related to not only to communicating what happens in terms of adherence or other fundamental biometrics that you might get by adding a sensor to a pill or putting underneath the skin. We see the convergence between three huge fields: the biology field, as we know, but not as we used to know.
Right.
So that is also changing. So as Eric Topol said brilliantly, medicine is dead, basically. So that's what...
the patient will see you now, doctor.
Yeah, correct. Yes. So the 5 most important words in medicine has been changed completely. And then the convergence of big data. We've been discussing this in this podcast. And then the third is on sensoristic and all the technology that are linked to nano electronics. 3D printing is coming. Gene editing, we said. The measurements of lifestyle on the impact of medication, kind of certified. Destructurizing the data, analyzing the data in a predictive manner. That's a fascinating thing. We came here, we were convinced we could use web semantic technology. Forget it. These are no number, no names, no number database, completely destructured. That's cognitive computing, and that's where it's going. And you know what the caveat I see of all this on a completely almost delusional vision is that still all these machines, all these analyses are not capable of doing the most important thing that our brain does, which is making mistakes.
Right.
By mistakes we learn, and if we don't introduce a mistaking-generated type of algorithm, I'm afraid we will not get the real future that we deserve.
Luca, your book is called Sustainable Innovation. It's an excellent read. I highly recommend it to everyone to download on the link that we'll be providing. And Luca, a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Pleasure is mine.
Thank you.
Thank you.